Welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to discuss how I adjusted my ST XA Coilovers on my F30 340i. I did a lot of research online before making this video, but I'm not a professional mechanic or automotive engineer, so you should take everything I have to say with a grain of salt. Reference the manual that came with your coilovers as well, and make sure you're being as safe as possible when working on your car. With that being said, I am going to go through step by step and show you my process, and hopefully you gain a better understanding of how these coilovers work and how to adjust them by the end of the video. Before you install your coilovers, you should go around to each corner of the vehicle and get a factory ride height measurement. This will serve as a baseline for future adjustments, and you'll see why this is important later in the video. Make sure the car is on a level surface and that the tires are properly inflated to ensure that you get accurate measurements. Corner balancing using scales is definitely the best method, but I didn't feel like spending the money on the scales or paying a professional to do it for me, especially since I don't track my car. Instead, I approached this with the assumption that the car came corner balanced from BMW. Using my factory ride height measurements, I was able to lower the car at the same ratio so that hopefully the factory corner balance would be unaffected. In my case, the front and the rear of the car were at the same height, so I just lowered the car so that the ride height was equal at all four corners, but still lower than stock. Now, on to how to actually adjust these coilovers. I'll be starting in the rear because these are a lot harder to adjust than the fronts, so I recommend you adjust the rears first and then fine-tune your ride height settings in the front. To adjust the coilovers in the rear, you'll want to use the adjustment wrench included with your coilovers, but the issue you're most likely going to run into is that the entire assembly is going to turn as a unit. This will prevent you from being able to actually adjust the ride height. I tried two workarounds for this, but ultimately I unbolted the rear control arm and removed the spring assembly to adjust it off the car. Before making any adjustments, it's recommended you clean the threads. I used some Meguiar ceramic 3-in-1 detail spray and some compressed air. I made the adjustment collar level with the top of the assembly, and then I rotated the adjustment collar 2 full revolutions. I used a Sharpie so I could keep track of where I was. After doing this, the ride height was equal within a few millimeters on each side of the car. This left me with a ride height of around 24 inches. Removing the suspension from the car is definitely a little bit of a headache, so you might want to give these workarounds a try first. Just understand that these are workarounds and attempt them at your own risk, just like everything you see in this video. The first workaround I tried was using super glue to try to give the top of the spring perch enough of a grip to stop itself from spinning, but I had no luck with that method. I also tried using a rubber strap wrench to hold the spring perch in place, but that didn't work for me either. There are 3 workarounds that seem like they might work, but I can't comment on them personally because I haven't tried them. The first method would be using a rotary tool and cutting a Phillips head into the spring perch to give you something to hold on to. This will of course damage the spring perch in the sense that you are modifying it, and it's kind of a shame that ST didn't include something like that from the factory because it would make adjusting these coilovers so much easier, and it seems like that feature exists on other models of coilovers. The second method would be to place an extension on a jack and apply enough pressure to the spring perch to stop it from spinning. This would be the method I would likely try first if I had to do this again. Just place something over the extension to avoid marring any surfaces and spread out the force a little bit. And of course, you'd want to apply the least amount of pressure possible. Lastly, you could use some type of body shop adhesive at the top of the spring perch to permanently secure it to the car, although this would require removing the spring assembly from the car. Let me know if you've had any success with these other methods in the comments below. The front coilovers are very easy to adjust. All you have to do is unscrew the set screw, and then you can spin the collar up or down depending on which way you need to go. Once the coilovers are in the spot that you want to keep them, just make sure you tighten the set screw and you're all done. In my case, it took a few tries to get the settings dialed in, so plan on jacking the car up, taking the wheel off, making the adjustment, then putting the wheel back on and lowering the car, and repeating that process a few times until you're happy with the ride height. The stiffness in the rear looks like it's adjusted at the top of the strut, which is inaccessible from the trunk, so basically you're stuck with taking them off the car. So in this video, I'm just going to show you how to adjust the fronts. Based on the diagrams, the adjustment in the front and the rear looks the same. The fronts are adjusted by using an Allen key included with your suspension. I heard a lot online about people hearing or feeling clicks within the adjustment, but in my case it was more of a continuous adjustment range without any distinct clicks. I purchased a KW adjustment tool as well, but that turned out to basically just be a fancy Allen key. Maybe the best way to do this would be to use a protractor or something that you could dial in the suspension to the exact same setting on each side, but for me, I just ballparked it. It's important to note that you shouldn't be running the suspension on full stiff or full soft, and you should actually ensure that they're slightly under full stiff or above full soft to avoid damaging any of the suspension components. Keep in mind that your suspension's job is to keep the tire in contact with the road as much as possible, so that doesn't mean that full stiff is automatically the best setting for your suspension. This is where experimentation and automotive engineering knowledge is definitely more applicable, but for my use case with this car, I spent some time adjusting the stiffness and ended up settling around about 75% of the max stiffness. After you've finished making the adjustments to your suspension, make sure you get an alignment. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, please leave a like and a comment down below, and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. Now it's time to go out and enjoy your new suspension.